Thank you so much for joining us on the Dwelling Show. My name is Ola Dantes, your host, and I've got the awesome Nichole Stohler with us today. Hey, Nichole, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks so much for that intro.
Yeah, no, definitely. I read your story. You're doing a lot of amazing things. Love your podcast. I checked that out as well. The Richer Geek. I'm a geek myself, so I really love that title. I think we can just jump right into it. So can you just tell our Dwell listeners a little bit more about you and kind of what you've been up to lately, actually?
Sure. Well, first of all, my podcast is called The Richer Geek. That's because I'm focused on people who work in technology. I myself work in technology full time. And while doing that, my husband and I invested in real estate. We built our portfolio over time to the point where my husband manages our portfolio full time as his full-time job. And then we also transitioned into hotels about 2 years ago and are doing our first hotel syndication.
Wow, that's amazing. You've got your portfolio where you kind of invest in passively. Now you're going to a different asset class, which is hotel. So we're definitely going to touch on those. But I want to kind of go back a little bit, right? You've got, like you said, you're working in tech. You've got a day job, and you're doing real estate. First and foremost, how did you get into real estate? What was that kind of thing you were looking for? Why didn't you just continue working your 9 to 5? I'm sure it's a great job, working in tech, fast paced, but now you're kind of investing, on the side. What kind of prompted that? I guess not transition, but that shift.
It's a great question. I think there's kind of two parts to it. The first is back in 1999, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and that set the stage for having a different mindset. And that book sort of blew my mind because I had just graduated from college. Those were concepts we never learned in school at all. I had some basic personal finance fundamentals that we learned and we were taught, but not how to really think like a business owner and why you should do that and how to make your money work for you. So that book really set the stage for thinking a little bit differently as I went about my career. Now, I never was the kind of person who said, I 100% I want to have my own business and that's going to be my focus. And I say that because I tend to be very much of a workaholic. And I was always afraid if I just completely owned my own business, I would probably never stop working. So I really enjoy corporate America for me because it actually does bring me some balance and a line of delineation. In any case, we failed miserably when my husband and I first invested back in 1999. And there's a whole story behind that. What we decided was that my husband should go learn the business. So he went to go work for a large multifamily developer and owner. And he was in property management, but for the company that actually owned the properties themselves. And so he was managing 300, 600 unit apartment complexes under this organization. And it was a very good background and operational understanding that he developed as a result of that. Because of our failure in that first, 1999, 2000 timeframe, we took a while before we invested again. And so that comes to your question. So first it was the book, then learning the business, but then why again? Because I realized that we couldn't just have full-time jobs. To me, I look at it like if you do own a business and you only have one customer and that's all your revenue, what happens if your one customer leaves? You're just in a bad position. So you should look at your life as a business. And you shouldn't have, in my opinion, your only income be W-2 income, whether it's 2 or 1. If you're married, it's still relying on someone else for that income, and something could happen. So I always look at, well, we should have a plan B. We should have other income streams, and that is the reason that we got back into it a little bit further down the road.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for that. There's a lot in there. Definitely first one that struck me, and I can relate to that, is reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? Because I feel like reading that book kind of almost like gives you like a smack in the face, like wake up, right? And I really like his diagrams about, cash in and cash out and, income and expenses. And those are things that the average person doesn't really, think about, just because, they go to work, they come back, they spend, they go to work, come back. It's like a cycle, right? So I feel like that book really does kind of take you out a little bit out of that cycle and get you to see things a little bit differently. So you guys had that first epiphany that you can actually invest in this thing called real estate, or start getting cash flow. And you tried, right? And you said you didn't do so well, right? So can you tell us a little bit more about, what you learned from those, learnings? I don't want to use the word failure. I'm trying to use it. I'm looking for a synonym here. So can you kind of walk us through that story in 1999?
Yes, our learnings. Okay, that's a good phrase there. So here's the thing: you in this business, in real estate investing, there are many different ways you can learn. You can pay to learn, so you can pay a coach, or you can pay someone who has a lot of experience. You can learn through mistakes, and you're still going to pay for it, or you can learn by getting into the business and working with someone else, right? Like my husband did. So those are all the pieces that I feel like you're going to have to learn some way. And we jumped in right after reading that book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and went to a seminar, a real estate investing seminar. And here we are paying to learn, but 100% of that seminar was about finding properties. It was about buying properties creatively. So we came back 100% gung-ho about these creative strategies. I will tell you, at that point in time, what we did is we found a local university in a smaller town where when people had died, they left in their will and their trust properties to the university. And the university wasn't really in the business of managing properties. It wasn't really something they wanted to do. And what they offered as an incentive was basically seller financing. So we were completely thrilled with this, right? We're not really having to put any money down. We're not having to get mortgages. We're following the strategies we learned in this seminar. But I will say we did have to have down payment money, and we were just out of college, so we didn't have a lot of money. But we used credit card cash advances to be able to do that. So you can kind of start to see, maybe not super great idea at this point. But here's really the problem. Buying the property is one thing. Really, the strategies we didn't know how to fully evaluate the property. So just because you could get a property for free doesn't mean you should. We didn't understand how to manage residents. How do you really control, like, people don't pay their rent on time, or you're going to get a lot of excuses. We had never been taught that, and so we got walked over, right? So we believed in the excuses. We didn't understand when we talked about analyzing the property, just repairs and maintenance and what we were going to have to do. So there was a whole operational and analysis component that was not included in the seminar, and that really was our downwards. That was the bad spiral that we had at that point in time.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard that before, actually getting properties from universities, from, people that's really fascinating, actually. I wonder if they still do that today.
I would imagine that the same type of thing happens today, but I feel like maybe in today's environment, the universities have more outlets to be able to publicize and get those properties either sold, or I just think today's market might be a little different, but it's still worth a shot.
I bet. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, actually. So you also mentioned something very fascinating, that you could actually learn by, paying a coach, or maybe like going to a seminar like you did. But then you also mentioned the seminars could have shortcomings, right? They can teach you a particular strategy, but maybe not not through a holistic approach where, like you said, you get to own a property, but then having to manage tenants is a different module that maybe you didn't get from the seminar, right? So from your situation, what exactly would you say to somebody maybe starting out and thinking, whoa, I probably don't want to, go through the learning experience that Nichole and her husband did. What can I do differently? And is paying a mentor or going to a paid seminar really worth it?
I think there's maybe two pieces to that. A seminar, I think it is worth it because there are generally strategies that you receive, but I think recognizing that that is not the full strategy. It's generally one piece. And I think about it, it would probably people wouldn't be too interested in an entire day focusing on managing your property. But uh, but they should, right? They should make it kind of a optimize your property management or something like that. The other thing I think too that's missed a lot is how do you manage your manager if you have a property manager. I think people believe that they can just kind of be hands off, and you absolutely cannot. I equate it to in the technology field. If you outsource your IT environment, you can't just let that outsourcer run wild. You have to manage them. So same kind of thing in property management. But I do think it is worth it. So if you were to start today and you were brand new into this, I do think finding a coach or a mentor or signing up for a program that has a proven overall process, I think could be very helpful. The other thing would be potentially going to work part-time, doing something where you're getting that experience, whether you're working part-time in property management, or maybe you're offering to shadow someone. Finding a mentor in some way, whether you're paying for it, you're working for it, whatever the case may be, I think is really key, because there are going to be things that you just don't think of, and that person's already been through it, and they're going to point out the gotchas that is just going to be hard for you to see because you haven't experienced it yet.
So if we have a dual listener listening on our conversation, and maybe they have a 9 to 5, or maybe they actually work in the tech field, and they're thinking, wow, okay, I do want to start investing, or I want to start, earning cash flow, right? But I don't have time. What do you say to that person?
So that's a great question, and it's something I ask on my podcast too, is before you even, and this is something I mentioned, don't even go to Bigger Pockets until you have kind of in your mind created your plan. You know what you're trying to attempt, because otherwise you can get very overwhelmed and there's all these different things. So I mentioned that because I think that you need some of your key questions. You do need I can't even speak. You need to determine how much time you have. If you don't have time, if you're in tech, you're on call, you're working weekends, you're traveling. I know a lot of people who are traveling. Then you need to look for a passive investment. That's 100% the advice I would give. Even if you bought a property and you hired a property manager, you're gonna have to be involved. You cannot be completely hands off. And the only way you get to be completely hands off is if it's a passive investment.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's a good one. So obviously, folks that are working can look for folks like yourself or myself to basically help them parlay that capital, and they can just kind of get hands off and get quarterly reports or monthly disbursements. So before we talk about the hotel, I want to talk about one last thing, right? And I love talking about mindset a lot, because I feel like on podcasts, yes, we give out technical information, but I try to kind of lay a little bit more towards the mindset part. So can you talk about overcoming fear, and especially in the real estate market today, how do you overcome fear, and how do you kind of, win in this market?
That is such a great question, because everybody's trying to figure out, is everything too highly valued? And anyone who was investing in 2011, around that time frame on up, had these amazing deals, and you can't find deals like that anymore. So then you're thinking to yourself, is this not a good time to invest? Or if you're just getting into real estate investing, you're wondering, you're hearing maybe different things. So a couple of things I would say is, if you're investing passively, then you'll want to do a lot of your due diligence about the offering. And you want to understand from the sponsor, what are their contingency and backup plans? Kind of like IT, right? We always talk about our contingency and backup plans. If you are buying a property on your own, you want to look at the worst case scenario, and do the financials still make sense? So one of the things that my husband and I always have done is we buy for cash flow. We do not buy for appreciation. We don't hope that the property becomes higher valued. We've never been flippers. That's not part of our strategy. And that is kind of a different approach. But ours is, do we have cash flow now? And to protect yourself, what was the worst case 10 years within the past 10 years? For example, if it's a single family home in this, XYZ particular market, what was the worst rent in the past 10 years? Okay. And then what is your mortgage? And then will you still make money if you ever get back down to that worst possible rent? And if you can, then it's worth investing because that was the worst. And then what has happened since then? Rents have gone up to, every year have continued to increase. People always need a place to live. It's a pretty safe investment. Plus, mortgage rates are still at very, very low for 30-year fixed. So you're really locking in a very conservative long-term view.
Yeah, fantastic. That is definitely a good way to underwrite as well. I really like that. So I think for me, it's time to talk about one of your deals. Maybe you can talk about one of your investments that you passively, or maybe the hotel syndication that you and your husband have just done. So just walk us through a case study. How did you find the deal? How did you fund the deal? And how's the deal going if you haven't completed a full cycle on the deal?
Okay, we have a existing hotel that we've had for about 2.5 years now. So here's the thing about real estate. It is really important to build a good local network. It's important to network, across the country as well, but locally it's very important because that's kind of your eyes and ears as to what's happening. And for example, if you need a handyman, you need to know, who are the reliable best people, etc. So we found that hotel off network or off market, so to speak, and basically putting out feelers, networking with people who were in hotel industry, because prior to that, we had always been in multifamily, in apartment complexes. And we were networking with different people in different niches, and the hotel niche really caught our attention. It was very interesting to us. I would say we met the person that found this hotel deal about 2 years prior to actually, moving forward with a hotel. And he was always listening and watching what was going on in the market and bringing opportunities and discussing them with us. And I would say probably 95% of the time they were off market. Nobody was putting, hey, I'm trying to sell this hotel. And we would discuss different strategies. What are we looking for? Why would this hotel be a good deal? What could we do differently? How could we improve the cash flow? All of those kinds of things. So the hotel we ended up buying is in a Phoenix metropolitan market, but not directly in Phoenix. And so it is in a very close, but still kind of a smaller town type of area where there is limited hotel competition, which is very interesting. There are economic centers of employment that are coming up and that are being developed. So this is another piece about networking and knowing your market, is really understanding what's happening in that particular area, construction and freeways and new employers coming in, and being aware of that, because now what is the potential opportunity as the employment centers grow out in this area. So all of that was happening where this particular hotel is. We also did see a lot of opportunities to improve management and to improve ongoing operations, even something as simple as the general manager didn't have the best attitude. And so some of the reviews on TripAdvisor were not great. And granted, everybody has a different opinion and you can't please everyone, but you could consistently see that there was a contention with guests from this general manager. So you just can't have that in a hospitality industry. So there was just a number of things that we said, okay, this is an opportunity where it's value add that we can come in like you would in an apartment complex or something along those lines, and we know we can improve the cash flow. So that property has been a significant performer for us. In fact, another thing that you can do, and when we're talking about hotels specifically, is you can look to sell blocks of rooms to corporations. So that is a huge kind of money driver. Our general manager now is out in the market, going to Chamber of Commerce events, being very active in the community, and we have been selling the entire hotel out for a couple of months for corporate types of events, people in for training, that type of thing. So it's been a really positive experience, which then led us to move into, we currently have another hotel under contract.
Wow, fantastic. Congratulations on that. I mean, that's gotta be interesting from, multifamily and now into hotel. So yeah, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we're definitely dwelling into the quick round. These are going to be quick questions, quick answers. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right, let's do this. So first question, what makes you, Nichole, different? What is that differentiating factor that separates you from the next girl or the next guy?
Well, I am a type A, super hardworking person. As I talked about, I'm a little bit of a workaholic. But I think the biggest thing is that I'm focused on bringing value in all interactions. So with my podcast, I want to bring value to the discussion. With investors, we want to bring value. And then in my day-to-day career, I'm looking to bring value to the clients I work with.
Awesome. Second question. You mentioned you're a reader. So what was the last book that you read? And what was the one thing that you picked up from that book?
Never Split the Difference from Chris Voss. Amazing book. I think it applies whether in sales or not, just in a lot of different ways. The one thing is that you really shouldn't compromise. And a lot of strategies around how to not compromise, because he's talking about hostage situations and there's not a good compromise there. So you find a different way.
Yeah, I bet. So as you said, you're workaholic, you're working, you're 9 to 5, you got the Richer Geek Podcast, which I'm sure it's a ton of work. I've got my podcast, so I know. You've got obviously family. What do you do for fun?
For fun, I love to read Scandinavian murder mysteries. I don't know where that started, but I absolutely love to do that. And I like to just be somewhere, up north in northern Arizona, in the pine trees, reading out in the cool breeze, because I am in Phoenix and it's hot right now. So I love to do that. I love to read.
Awesome. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, Scandinavian murder mysteries. Fascinating. Yeah. So if there's a dual listener listening and thinking, wow, I really like Nichole, maybe they're in the Phoenix market or in Arizona somewhere, maybe across the country, and they want to get to know you more or connect with you, where's the best place folks can reach out to you?
Well, you can always reach out to me on LinkedIn. My first name is spelled Nichole, last name Stohler, Stohler. You can also check out my website, which is therichergeek.com.
Nichole, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat with you. I've learned a ton myself. Thank you.
Thanks, Ola.
Wow, that was Nichole Stohler. I really like Nichole's story. Just the fact that she has a day job and she's still finding ways to buy apartments, to also buy hotels. I think that's absolutely fascinating. If you're out there thinking you do not have enough time, I think you should definitely rethink that statement. You can always find time, to invest, or even if you can't be involved passively, you can always invest, with someone like myself. We can help you, parlay that capital and help you get great returns. And if you even want to learn a little bit, then you can also do that. I just also want to use this time to say thank you for listening every week on The Dwelling Show. I'm just so grateful that you're doing that. Obviously, we're so thankful. So if you're finding value from this show, we urge you just go and give us a review right now on iTunes. There's going to be a link in the show notes. So please give us a rating and review. This really helps the show, helps to build our community here, at the Dwelling Show, and helps to get the word out to other people too. So if you've been finding value and learning a ton from the podcast, please give us a review. Thank you. I really appreciate you.